Hi, my name is Dwayne Gathers. Welcome to Civitas LA, featuring diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. In these bi-weekly conversations, we hear from, learn from, and are truly inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making our region a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Now more than ever, we aim to elevate civic discourse, foster community connections, and promote civic knowledge and engagement across our region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in that conversation. Founded in San Francisco in 1942 to train young veterans in the leadership skills necessary to assure that our democratic system of government could more effectively meet the needs of its citizens, Coro Southern California came into being in 1957 with a mission to strengthen the democratic process by preparing emerging leaders for effective and ethical leadership in public affairs. Today in studio, we are joined by Natalie Samarjian, President and CEO of Coro Southern California, herself a Coro alum, as we discuss their work in redefining what leadership means and looks like and their efforts to build the next generation of community builders and leaders in our region. Natalie, welcome to Civitas LA.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Dwayne.
Great to have you in the studio. Happy Saturday. Natalie, as we begin, we always like to have our guests give us a brief biographical intro. So share with us an introduction to Natalie Samarjian.
Thank you, Dwayne. So my name is Natalie Samarjian. I am a Lebanese Armenian American woman, an immigrant from Beirut, Lebanon. My mother and I came as war refugees in 1989 and moved to Los Angeles, have been in Los Angeles since. Los Angeles is home, and I'm a proud Angelina. I'm also a very proud double Bruin. I went to UCLA for my undergraduate degree and then back for law school. But in between there, I did an incredibly important program after graduating from UCLA. I did the Coro program in public affairs in San Francisco. After law school, I practiced in the public interest space, in the domestic violence advocacy space with victims and survivors of domestic violence. And at the top of 2017, I stepped into the CEO role at Coro Southern California, where I have been for the past 5 years. And it's been an incredible honor to be in this role and do this work as an alum and as somebody who's been personally transformed by Coro. There are also a few organizations that I care deeply about. I am a board member and alum of Emerge California. Emerge trains women for public office, helping to diversify our elected leadership and to uplift and center the voices of women leaders. I also serve on the board of Heidi Duckler Dance. Heidi Duckler Dance does incredible work at the intersection of dance and physical movement and social movements, and brings to life many of the beautiful spaces that we hold dear in Los Angeles. I am also a proud civic servant as a Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County Commissioner.
Excellent. Well, two things come to mind. You know, we've had a number of organizations that are at the intersection of leadership development and organizational development, including Southern California Grant Makers previously, and also the Center for Nonprofit Management. So we appreciate Coro Southern California and what you all are also doing in that leadership development space. Secondly, this leads into our lightning round questions, because I note that you said you were a double Bruin, and when we first began, our lightning round questions included a question, USC versus UCLA, and we found that caused too much consternation, so we no longer ask that question. But during our lightning round questions, this gives us an opportunity to get a little inside look at your Los Angeles, Natalie. So it's also an opportunity to warm up our voices for the afternoon. So share with us a few of your favorites about Los Angeles, starting with favorite restaurant.
Carousel, a Lebanese Armenian restaurant in Hollywood.
Okay. Where in Hollywood?
In Little Armenia.
Okay. I'll have to go there. Favorite watering hole?
The Dime on Fairfax.
Oh, wow. That's great. Give us a favorite place to take a visitor to our region.
A neighborhood tour. I think LA's neighborhoods tell the best stories, so all our neighborhoods.
Okay. Well, I'm going to skip down. Give me some of your favorite neighborhoods.
Little Armenia, Chinatown, Thai Town, Echo Park, Silver Lake, Inglewood. I mean,
okay.
I love all our neighborhoods.
Wonderful. And give us a favorite hike or park.
Griffith Park.
Ah, wonderful. I love Griffith Park. And we always like to find a hidden gem. Tell us something that's off the beaten path that you think is outstanding and special.
The Los Angeles Theater. It's a 2,000-seat historic movie theater in the heart of the historic Broadway theater. And I actually got introduced to it through Heidi Duckler Dance.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Wow, that's wonderful. We appreciate that. So that's great. Let's begin our conversation. Natalie, tell us about Coro. How and why did Coro come into being? And what would you say the Southern California Coro program, how has that evolved since its founding in the late 50s? And how has it evolved since you went through that program yourself?
Coro was founded during World War II, a time of rapid change, and our founders, Don Fletcher, an attorney, and Van Dyne Dodge, an investment banker, both civically invested leaders themselves, saw the rise in fascism abroad, the threat that it posed, the existential threat that it posed to our own democracy, the fragility that democracy really lives in, and realize that we actually don't have a training ground for civic leaders, the folks who we entrust to protect and advance our democracy, to really be the connective tissue in our communities and protect our civic fabric. These folks don't actually get trained akin to other professions like law and medicine. And they actually look to the field of medicine where a physician, who may specialize in a certain part of the body, say, ear, nose, and throat, still has to go through residency and still has to learn about the body as a whole. And they thought this concept was really transferable to the civic and public affairs space, that a leader in public affairs, in civic life, may specialize and be a leader in a sector, whether that be labor or the nonprofit sector or business or government, but that it was really important for them to understand these sectors holistically and to understand the interplay between the different sectors of civic life and public affairs. And that really laid the foundation for Coro, its philosophy and its curriculum. And they birthed this organization in the 40s to build an infrastructure of civic leaders who are going to be at the front lines, who are going to invest deeply in the social, economic, and political well-being of their communities and ultimately of our democracy. Since its inception, one beautiful element about Coro and a real privilege of the role that I have is that the product and the programs and the philosophy has stayed relevant, and frankly, Dwayne, has become more relevant over time.
Sure.
And I find myself really just blown away by the foresight of the founders of the organization with the frameworks and the tools and the philosophies that they built this model on, that it's been so transferable over time. That being said, we really embrace the idea that leaders are learners. And so we, of course, not only instill that in the folks that go through Coro programs, but we embrace that ourselves as an organization. And we are consistently looking to new leadership frameworks and models. We're asking our program participants what they need. We engage in survey analysis with our program participants all the time, anecdotal data collection. We want to know what's working, what's not. What do you need to be in better service of your organization, your community, your movements? And with that, we continue to iterate, grow, and expand.
Well, I know the programs, have a blend of experiential, classroom, and cohort-based learning to develop these leadership competencies. So give us a brief overview of the programs and how they actually work.
The big idea for us at Coro is to train, cultivate, and build a community of leaders who have the skills, the knowledge, and the networks to, what we say, effectuate meaningful change and implement solutions to some of the most pressing challenges that our region faces. So I'll get more deeply into what each of those elements mean. So when we talk about the skill building piece, we break that down in both self-awareness and spatial awareness. So we want to instill in leaders a self-awareness of their own strengths, of their areas of growth and development, of their own biases, of their assumptions, so that leaders have an opportunity to self-reflect and make sure that when they're decision-making, that they are decision-making collaboratively, that they're decision-making in a way that has full self-awareness of their own leadership compass. And that's a really sort of transformative element of leadership. We think leaders need to have critical self-awareness to be effective in their roles. The other is spatial awareness. We want to give leaders an understanding of the different sectors of public affairs and the tools and the frameworks to solve policy and public affairs challenges. We want to give them an understanding of power mapping, of systems thinking and systems analysis so that they can engage and roll up their sleeves and do the work and have the proper tools and frameworks to engage in this work. We also heavily focus on the knowledge piece. We want civic leaders to understand and get under the hood of the challenges and the issues that our region faces, whether it be health or housing or education or criminal justice. We want leaders to have an understanding of the contours of these issues and challenges so that they can play a meaningful role in solutions to these challenges, whether that's an area of expertise, experience, or interest for leaders to be able to contribute to. Lastly, we want to give leaders an opportunity to build and expand their networks. We know that real change and meaningful solutions require us to reach beyond our traditional boundaries and our silos. We want to give leaders an opportunity to build relationships with folks in different industries and different sectors with different ideologies and different perspectives so that they also have an opportunity to build meaningful social capital.
Right.
I think social capital is an incredibly important part of effective leadership, and we want to give leaders social capital with leaders who live in different silos than they do, have different perspectives, different ideologies, and different experiences. And so, we bring together the skills, the knowledge, and network through our programs, and that's what folks who go through Coro programs can expect to walk away with.
Sure. Skills, knowledge, and networks, those are all critically important. So the question I have then is, how many people cycle through your program in any given year? Who's a typical, or is there a typical Coro, fellow?
So we have programs that cater to folks in all stages of their career. We have programs for youth, for rising juniors and seniors, bringing together young people from across LA County who we find otherwise would not have an opportunity to actually learn from one another and meet one another and grow with each other. Our county continues to be incredibly segregated, and young folks in independent schools, traditional public schools, charter schools from across our county in this program get an opportunity to grow together in an incubated leadership development setting. We also have our flagship Fellows in Public Affairs program that trains recent college graduates, and we train 12 young leaders a year through that program. And then we have a series of mid-career programs, a portfolio of programming that we're continuing to grow. So we have our Women in Leadership program, we have Lead LA, Lead SoCal, and our Workforce Leadership Network. And folks who come to Coro programs, I would say there's just one thread. They are folks who are curious and invested in their growth.
Right. And how many people are you serving a year?
We train over 500 people a year,
500 a year.
in Coro SoCal.
Well, having participated myself, actually, I'll share in the Leadership Southern California program, which was run through the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce back in 2007. I'm interested to get your take on the various leadership development initiatives and how Coro may differ from those or how they complement each other throughout the region.
Yeah, absolutely. When Coro was founded, there weren't really civic leadership development programs. It was a new concept. It was a new program, and since then, there have been a number of programs and organizations that have emerged doing this work, and we love to see that because the big idea for us and what we're committed to here at Coro is for this work to be done. And we don't have to be the only ones doing this work. We believe not only in instilling collaboration in our program participants, but also in embracing and encapsulating that as an organization. So we are big fans of Leadership Southern California. Our philosophy, our curriculum, and the blend of the skill, network, and knowledge pieces are really unique here at Coro. Of course, from the network piece, we've been doing this work for 75 years, and we have a very deep well of alumni who've gone through Coro programs over the course of the 75 years, and a lot of goodwill to reinvest in the organization and to grow the network. And so we're really very fortunate in that way to have such a big community of folks who've gone through Coro programs. And our curriculum is really unique in its focus on building the frameworks that leaders can use and leverage to solve complex challenges. And that's really, we are much more focused on the how and not the what. We are not a didactic program. Leaders who come through Coro programs are going to learn by doing and not by necessarily being told or taught. That's what distinguishes Coro from a graduate program, if you will, and that stays a really unique part of our brand and our work.
So when did you go through the program? And I'm curious to know what motivated you to participate in Coro, and what did you take away from that, and how has it impacted your work and your own life?
I went through the Coro program immediately after graduating college, after graduating UCLA. A man by the name of Michael Dukakis, who you may know, was my professor at UCLA Luskin. I was a public policy minor, and I was taking a housing policy course with him, and he essentially, I think, thought maybe I was maybe a little more interested, maybe obsessed with policy than the average student. So it was one of his office hours, and he said,
you were one of those students.
I was one of those.
You were tapping on the door saying, Professor.
I was like, Professor, let's analyze SROs. Let's really talk about how we can solve this challenge. And here we are over 15 years later, but that's for another discussion. But
sure.
He said, hey, there's a program that I think would be really fitting for someone with your interests, and you should really check it out. And the rest was history. I checked out Coro and immediately moved to San Francisco, where I actually did the program.
Oh, you did it in the Bay Area.
I did in the Bay Area, the Fellows Program in Public Affairs, and I always reflect on the 9 months as the most transformation I've received in the shortest amount of time. As an immigrant, I was, my mother and I were undocumented for about 14 years after we arrived in the U.S. As a war refugee, I didn't have a lot of access in social capital in my family setting. I was, I'm a first generation college student. My mother actually went to college when I went to college together. Coro really not only expanded my knowledge, my understanding of systems, my skill set and leadership toolbox, but really also expanded my social capital, my ability to learn from leaders who were engaging in really exciting and interesting work, and I've never looked back since. I am that is the reason I'm back now in the seat, and so deeply honored to be moving this work forward because of the transformative impact that being a Coro alumni has had on my life. And I always share that it's actually a gift that keeps giving. About 50% of the learning happens in the program, and at least personally for me, the other 50% just keeps happening. I reflect back on my Coro toolbox and learning all the time still, and draw on that to grow in my own work.
Sure. Well, as I said, I went through the Leadership Southern California program in 2007, and the men and women that I went through that experience with also a 9-month program, I still communicate with, and it's just been wonderful to see everyone's civic journey from there. But, so the program began in 1957 here in Southern California, and you went through it after college some years ago. And obviously last year was a really challenging year in our country. And as we've heard you say over the past year and a half, as we've endured the pandemic and the summer protests last year around racial justice, you and your organization have come to refine the ways that you see and define leadership. And you've talked about ways to expand the skills, tools, and knowledge that you bring to participants of your program. So how did the activities of last year impact your organization, and how has your organization evolved to deliver services, programs in a new way to your participant?
We're fortunate in that Coro at its inception has never defined leadership as positional or authoritative. It's not necessarily defined as a C-suite position and sometimes doesn't live at all in the C-suite. You may not find leadership in the C-suite, and you'll actually go into the factory, and that's actually where leadership lives, the folks who are on the front line driving the work forward. And so Coro, we define leadership as moving yourself, your community, your movements, our world forward in service of a bigger vision than just yourself. It's a discipline of being and thinking and acting. It's, who you are, how you behave, and how you think. It's a practice that can be practiced by anyone, anywhere, at any point in time. And it's a lifelong practice. Leadership doesn't have a starting point and ending point. The leadership journey, if it's going to be done well, is something that we commit to and carry on through our professional and personal lives. And so, at Coro, it's fortunate that our philosophy and curriculum has always rested on this definition of leadership. And, it comes to life most beautifully, I think, in our Youth Fellows program. When young folks come in and leave the program and often share with us on the back end that they realize that they are actually their community's leaders. And I just get goosebumps right now talking about it, because that's the whole point. That's why we do this work. That's why we wake up every day, and that's why we drive this work, is for these young folks to know that they are the leaders of their community. And many of them end up changing course and, finding and pursuing new areas of study because of this inspiration and realizing that they are leaders. And then the other competencies that are critical to us at Coro and that our programs rest on highlighting, developing, and instilling are humility, integrity, and empathy. And I'll share a little bit about how we sort of define these competencies. Empathy is learning from people with different experiences and perspectives, right? Is taking a step back, going on the balcony, and learning from the experiences and perspectives of others so that we can expand our own self-awareness and our own spatial awareness.
Sure.
Humility is admitting mistakes, collaborating, taking feedback, asking for feedback, knowing that it's never really about the answer. It's actually always about the question. And I'm quoting the indomitable Robin Kramer here. Okay. Robin reminds us every time. Mm-hmm. It's leadership is not asking what the answer is. It's asking what is the question. And the last is integrity. Integrity is a deep commitment to doing the right thing regardless of the circumstance. It's being guided by a compass of principles and values. And we find that these are core traits that effective leaders, the community of leaders that we want to cultivate, hold. Mm-hmm. And we've really doubled down on this in the last year, and also, really listened to the insatiable need that we all as leaders have for equity, for justice, and for the disruption of systems that are mm-hmm. no longer serving equity and justice. Right. And those come to life in Coro programs. We've always brought together leaders with a diversity of experiences and perspectives, and that's always been at the core foundation of who we are mm-hmm. in our work. Mm-hmm. And we're continuing to do that because that's what we think LA needs, and that's what we think LA deserves, is to be led by the folks who live, work, and build Los Angeles.
Sure. And you talked about the need for greater collaboration, and certainly one of the things that we like to foster is collaboration and partnerships. So you've been able to garner strong support across a broad spectrum of corporate, government, labor, and foundation partners who share this mission of building leadership across our region. So how are they responding to these times and the need to evolve leadership, and what types of partnerships and collaborations are you looking forward to next to move your organization forward and your work forward?
Coro stakeholders and supporters have remained incredibly supportive of our work, and we're deeply, deeply grateful to them. We have, as you shared, Dwayne, a cross-sector network of supporters. We have folks who support us by supporting our programs, by serving as interview guests, as serving as issue area guests for our programs, so that our program participants can have a large and diverse set of leaders to learn from and who support their growth and their learning. And we are incredibly grateful for the folks who continue to invest in leaders mm-hmm. in this way. We have sponsorship partnerships, folks who keep the lights on. And we're so grateful for the investment that they're making in building a leadership infrastructure that we so desperately need to keep growing in Los Angeles. Like I shared, one that is diverse and really reflective of the communities in our region and in across our region. And, you know, our partnerships also live in other organizations that do similar work. We want to share knowledge. We believe in benchmarking, knowledge sharing, and growing with one another. And so we welcome partnerships in many forms. So if anyone's interested in learning more about how you can get involved in Coro, please do reach out. We are always excited to meet new partners and build new relationships.
And how do we find you?
Our website, corolaw.org. All our information, including mine, please reach out. And it's also where one can learn about all our initiatives and our programs.
We know, Natalie, as a podcast with a purpose, one being to elevate civic discourse and foster community connections and promote civic knowledge engagement. We're really excited about, you know, the Coro's civic investment series that you had called Leading Locally and how your organization is working to foster civic engagement. So tell us about that particular initiative and how does it work?
You know, we got a lot of correspondence over a few years of folks saying, "Hey, you know, Coro, you know, you've given us such a deep adaptive toolbox and an incredible network. We'd really like to learn about some concrete, practical ways of getting more civically engaged and involved." And, you know, of course, we want to serve these leaders, and that's what gave birth to Leading Locally. It's an opportunity to really connect inspiration and action. We want folks to have an opportunity to learn about all of the ways they can get involved. So we've had a number of discussions in the series about how folks can get involved, for example, in commissions and how they can serve in other civic roles. We got a lot of questions about how we can define and continue to evolve the definition of civil discourse. You know, at Coro, we bring together leaders with diverse perspectives, and yet we really want to hold spaces that are truly inclusive and that foster belonging. And these concepts are not mutually exclusive, but can be. And we wanted to bring together leaders who could help us better understand and dig deeper into the past, present, and future of civil discourse. So these are some of the discussions we've had through this series. We put it on pause. Made a little pivot during the pandemic, but we'll be bringing this series back to life very soon.
And who is that series open to?
Everybody and anybody who's interested is welcome to join us.
Well, you know, I think about it from a conversation we had perhaps, you know, a few episodes ago, and was focused, you know, on some of the very real challenges of homelessness, particularly in the Venice community. And one of the guests, you know, talked about, you know, as a resident and a business owner there, you know, sometimes the challenges can be so overwhelming. You know, you kind of think it's the responsibility of government to do something. And he said, you know, as a resident, as a citizen, it's difficult sometimes to know, what can I do? Where do I begin? I'm just curious in your thoughts on how you would address that person.
So at a macro level, I say we just all have to keep our feet moving, right? It is not the role of government or any one sector. We know that we are all responsible for our community and our community's well-being. So I'll start there. We all have to play a part. I think there are many ways to get involved. There are local community groups that folks can get engaged with, whether it be neighborhood councils or other neighborhood groups that live in and across our city. I think there are issues and, you know, whatever resonates with folks, whatever they see as an issue area or a sub-issue area that they want to contribute to, but identify it, do the research, do the work, find it, and see what resonates with you. And, you know, we are living in an information age, right? This was not the reality 25 years ago, but right now we can get on our computer and we can find almost anything that we are looking for when it comes to information. So do the work, research, and find what resonates with you and just roll up your sleeves and get involved. We have to keep our feet moving. I think it can be daunting when we pause for too long and really absorb the enormity of these challenges, because they are enormous. But that's where we have to have the courage to sometimes just take it one step at a time.
And one community at a time. So, over the course of our podcast, a year now, we've had any number of conversations with nonprofit leaders who've really had to look at last year between the racial justice issues, the pandemic, obviously, and they've had to pivot. So how did Coro evolve during COVID? And were any new program initiatives or approaches that were born out of the pandemic for your organization?
Well, first, of course, we historically ran our programs in person.
Sure.
We were no longer able to do that. And there was a moment as to what that meant. Do we pause our programs? And immediately, even before we could pose the question to our community, we got a flood of requests to say, no, please continue the programs.
Got to keep going.
You got to keep going, because we need this work more than ever. We need Coro. We need these, our work really rests on giving folks an adaptive toolbox to navigate complex challenges, rapid change. And, when have we seen more rapid change and complexity and uncertainty than we did in the last 18 months in such a brief period of time? And so we pivoted to deliver our programs virtually. And so all our programs not only continued, but in some instances grew, which is a real testament to the need and desire for this work. We also, realized that leaders did not necessarily have a map or a blueprint. None of us did. I did not have for this.
There was no roadmap to 2020.
There's no roadmap for this. And so we launched our Leadership and Resilience series to profile leaders who are experiencing this in real time and who had the grace and generosity to bring their vulnerability and candor and tell us about all of the ways that they are navigating this crisis and this challenge, sharing their fears, sharing their responses to uncertainty, how they are evolving as leaders, as humans, and that's been an incredibly, I think, humbling new series for me personally, for all of us, in just realizing the deep generosity that folks have really stepped into in bringing their stories in service of the greater good. We've had guests including Kathleen Brown on that, Judy Belk, a number of others who've, very generously shared their journey with us so that others can learn, can grow and build.
Well, with over 10,000 alumni now, how many are there in Southern California, and what's your vision for the role that Coro will play in moving beyond the pandemic at the city, at the county, at the regional level, at the state level?
We have here in Los Angeles almost 5,000 alums who've been trained since 1957 when the program came to Los Angeles, and folks who, of course, have been trained in other centers and moved to Los Angeles because, the sunshine keeps bringing the best and brightest. Our hope and our vision is to continue building an infrastructure of leaders who ask more questions than provide answers. We want leaders who rest and sit and live in curiosity, leaders who ask how they can be in service instead of how they can be an authority. We want leaders to move with integrity, with vulnerability, with vision, with care, because we really believe deeply at Coro that this is what it takes to move us into a more vibrant, a more thriving, a more equitable Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. I've got a question for you. We recently had LA City Council members Mark Ridley Thomas and Marquise Harris Dawson with us on the show, and we talked about their role as community leaders moving on to elected leadership. And that was the first time we stepped in that direction of going to talk to elected leadership. Is there a path that you all provide individuals to who look at elected leadership, or do you really not care? And what percentage of your leadership development participants go into elected roles?
We Our work really rests on building the adaptive leadership toolbox, and we're not prescriptive about where and when and how that can be exercised. And while many Coro alums have gone on to elected office and we're deeply inspired by their leadership, we believe that leadership lives in and across the different sectors. And so our alums have also gone on to leadership in business and labor and media and the nonprofit sector. And so we don't provide real technical skill building. However, when there is a space for civic leadership development, there's inevitably going to be a group of folks who are interested in elected office, and that's certainly been the case for a number of Coro alums.
Sure. Any notable alums you want to mention? Or
our newest, although perhaps no longer so new, Senator Alex Padilla, a graduate of Coro Southern California, County Supervisor Holly Mitchell, a graduate of Coro Southern California. We now have 4 U.S. senators who are Coro alums in office, and we also have Coro alums in Congress. Congressman Mike Levin is also an alum of Coro Southern California. We have Mayor of Oakland, Libby Schaaf, is an alum. Yeah. The list goes on, and these folks are doing work that we're really inspired by. And what we love most is that they still tell us that they really rely on and leverage their Coro skills and toolbox to do this work. We featured Congressman Levin in our Leadership and Resilience series, and he shared that, his Coro toolbox has really served him in building a reputation as a collaborative leader. That's somebody great. Who asks the tough questions and leads with courage.
So what's next for Coro? Are there any upcoming events that you'd like to share with our listeners? We'd be happy to promote those. What's next for Coro the next year or 2 or 5?
No, it's to continue responding to what our community wants from us, right? We are in service to the Southern California leadership community. And what we've been hearing is that they want more Coro. And so right now it is to grow our programs and to deepen our impact in that way. And so we are going to be growing our issue-based leadership programming. We launched our Workforce Leadership Network program to serve leaders in the workforce space, a cross-sector network of leaders. We will be modeling that to build a program for leaders in the housing space. We believe that there is a real opportunity to bring a cross-sector network of folks who are in housing to really accelerate the solutions to the enormity of that public challenge. We are also going to be reprogramming, and so you can expect our Women in Leadership Luncheon at the top of 22 in the spring, of course, if the health of our region allows us to host the event in person. We'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to hold spaces for members of our community to come together, to learn from one another, and to contribute to a better Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just so excited about this conversation and the work that you're doing, and any way that we can support you in that work to enhance civic knowledge and engagement and foster collaboration. We are all in to support that work of Coro. So thank you, Natalie. This is important work, and we really appreciate what you're doing and the team that you've assembled to carry out this work. So that's a lot to think about and act on, and we hope we can all continue to have you on and some of your alums on in the future. So as we like to say on Civitas LA, the guest gets the final word. So do you have any concluding thoughts for our audience that you'd like to share? Any calls to action?
I have 2. The first is do a Coro program. Check one out. We have programs that serve leaders in all stages of their career. I'm sure there is one that will support you and your leadership growth. So please check that out. And the other is bigger and a little bit more adaptive and responsive to this moment. Leaders are learners, not knowers. So let's all stay in the space of curiosity, ask questions. Let's commit to learning. Let's stay grounded in empathy. And I would say in any scenario, I encourage us all to pause and ask if we can respond with kindness and love, because our world desperately needs more of that.
Natalie, that's wonderful. This dialogue has been absolutely outstanding. We appreciate you and your time and all the work that Coro alums are doing to elevate our region. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Dwayne.
And to our audience, thank you as always for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks as we look forward to another great civic conversation. As we say on Civitas LA, until we meet again, stay strong, but more importantly, get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and share feedback on this program, or if you have a recommendation about future programs, please visit our website at www.civitasla.com, and we invite you to connect with us on Facebook at Civitas LA, Instagram at Civitas_LA, and Twitter at Civitas_LA.